The marketplace of Zephora was alive with color and sound. Floating carts glided through the air, carrying fruits that glowed softly under the alien sun. Robots with shining limbs moved in perfect synchronization, selling goods to aliens of every shape and size. Every creature here seemed graceful, precise, and confident in their abilities, except for one boy from a distant blue planet called Earth. Leo stepped cautiously into the heart of the market. He was small for his age, with messy brown hair and bright, curious eyes that darted from one wonder to the next. The human's clothing looked ordinary among the flashy alien attire. A plain shirt, trousers, and worn boots. Already he could feel the alien stares. Humans were rare here, and the Xiphorans prided themselves on being far superior. Leo's mission was simple: observe, learn, and maybe offer a small demonstration of human skills. But as soon as he entered, a voice rang out, sharp and amused. "Look at that," said Zira, a tall Zephyran noble with shimmering skin that shifted colors with her mood. "A human? How quaint." She stepped forward, tilting her head as if inspecting an insect. "Tell me, little boy, do your people stumble through life like this?" The crowd around them chuckled. Leo felt heat rise in his cheeks. He had heard stories of Xiphorans mocking humans, but experiencing it firsthand was different. His mind raced, trying to find words to respond without appearing weak. I come in peace," he said cautiously. His voice was small, but there was a spark of determination in his eyes. Zira laughed lightly, a sound that reminded Leo of wind chimes in a storm. "Peace? Perhaps. But your species has little to offer us. Look at your clothes, your small hands, your limitations." Leo swallowed. He had to stay calm. Humans were underestimated often, but history had shown that small and clever could outmatch the mighty. "Maybe you think I am weak," Leo said quietly, more to himself than to Zira. "But humans are good at seeing what others miss." Zira raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. Most humans cowered, but this one had a strange fire in his eyes. "Let us see then," she said, her voice playful but laced with challenge. "Show me something your species can do that even a child here could not." Leo looked around. Zephora's market was full of wonders: levitating carts, self-cleaning streets, fruits that floated toward buyers. But these were things Leo could not replicate. Not yet. He needed a small, clever way to prove himself. As the crowd watched, he bent down to pick up a scrap of discarded metal. Around him, Xiphorans murmured and laughed. "What is he doing with that? A child could not build anything with junk." But Leo's hands moved carefully, shaping the metal into a tiny contraption. Within moments, a small device started humming, and a faint blue light glowed from its core. It was a simple energy collector, a human invention adapted to Xiphoran materials. It wasn't large, flashy, or dangerous, but it worked. The crowd went silent. Even Zira tilted her head, frowning slightly. "What is this?" she asked. "A simple device," Leo said, standing tall despite the stares. "It collects energy from the sun and converts it for use in small machines. Humans make many devices like this, often with very little material. We find ways to work efficiently." Zira's expression changed subtly. There was curiosity now, though she tried not to show it. "Interesting. But surely your planet is primitive. You cannot possibly compare to Xiphora's machines." Leo smiled faintly. "Maybe not yet, but sometimes simple things work where complex ones fail." Zira laughed again, but it lacked the sharp mockery of before. Bold words for such a small being. As the market continued around them, Leo noticed the reactions of other Xiphorans. Some whispered among themselves, impressed by his cleverness. Others, loyal to Zira, still scoffed. The balance of attention had shifted slightly. The human boy, who had been a subject of ridicule, now held a spark of fascination. Leo, however, knew the hardest part was still ahead. This was only the beginning. Zephyrans valued power, technology, and appearances. They had never seen a human approach challenges the way he did, with creativity, patience, and adaptability. These traits were not flashy, but they were powerful. Zira, sensing the shift, decided to test him further. "Very well, human boy," she said, her tone sharper now. "If your people are so clever, perhaps you can help me with a small problem. There is a water conduit nearby that often malfunctions. Surely you can do no worse than our maintenance bots." Leo nodded. He had studied Earth technology for years. Repairing or improving machines was second nature to him. He followed Zira through the winding paths of the market to a set of glowing conduits that hissed and pulsed with energy. The conduits were elegant, complex, and clearly beyond anything humans had on Earth. Yet, Leo examined them carefully. He noticed a pattern, a weak point that the Zephyrans had overlooked. With some clever adjustments and a small patch made from scrap materials, he repaired the conduit in minutes. Water flowed smoothly again, and the air filled with soft cheers. Even some of the skeptical merchants clapped, amazed. Zira's eyes narrowed. She had expected failure. Instead, she saw efficiency, intelligence, and calm precision in a species she had dismissed. Yet her pride prevented her from admitting it outright. "Not bad," she said finally. "Perhaps your people are not entirely useless." Her tone was begrudging, almost like a warning. "But do not think this changes anything. One success does not make a species strong." Leo only smiled faintly. He knew this was true, but he also knew that this was his first small victory. Zephyrans often measured strength by size and technology, but humans had other kinds of strength: persistence, cleverness, and the ability to learn quickly. As the sun began to set over the marketplace, casting long shadows over the floating carts and glowing fruits, Leo looked around. He was a stranger in an alien world, mocked and underestimated. Yet he had already begun to prove that Earth produced something Zephora did not: adaptable minds that could solve problems in unexpected ways. Zira, walking beside him, could not deny the truth she was beginning to see. This human boy was not just clever, he was a symbol of what Earth could offer. But she would not admit it yet. Pride and skepticism still ruled her heart. The crowd dispersed slowly, leaving Leo and Zira alone in the heart of the market. The boy's mind was already racing ahead, thinking of the next challenge, the next invention, and the ways he could show Zephora that humans were more than simple and weak. For now, however, the marketplace had witnessed the first step in a remarkable story. A human underestimated, mocked, yet quietly showing the value of Earth's ingenuity. And somewhere deep in Zira's mind, curiosity stirred. Maybe, just maybe, humans were capable of more than she had ever imagined. The next morning, the Zephyran marketplace buzzed louder than ever. Traders polished their floating carts, robots hummed along the streets, and exotic fruits glowed in the early sun. Leo, however, was not looking at the spectacle around him. His attention was on a small pile of discarded materials tucked behind a quiet corner of the marketplace. Broken wires, metal scraps, and shattered crystals lay scattered, useless to Zephyrans, but to him a treasure trove of possibilities. Zira, ever curious, observed from a distance. She had spent the night thinking about the small human boy who had managed to fix the water conduit. It was impressive, but she still felt superiority. Humans were primitive, yes, but there was something different about this one. Something clever. Leo began sorting through the scraps. He picked up a bent piece of metal and twisted it with nimble fingers. Next, he connected two broken wires and adjusted a crystal that glowed faintly when touched. Within minutes, he had created a small, self-sustaining light source. It pulsed softly, steady and bright. Xiferans passing by stopped to watch. Murmurs filled the air. "What is that human doing now?" one asked. "It looks strange." "But it works," said another. Zira stepped closer, her shifting skin glowing with a curious hue. "Impressive," she said carefully. "But is this really useful? Or just a toy?" Leo looked up, his green eyes shining with quiet confidence. "This may seem small, but it can save energy and light small areas efficiently. Humans often use simple tools for big results." Zira tilted her head. "Big results from simple tools? That sounds ambitious." She crossed her arms and watched as he continued his work. The boy didn't stop. He moved quickly but carefully, assembling a tiny energy regulator from scraps. Then, using a few more pieces, he built a small irrigation device designed to move water from one container to another without pumps. It was basic, almost crude to Xiferan eyes, but it functioned perfectly. One of the traders whispered, "It works. Simple, but it works." Another nodded, intrigued. Zira frowned. She didn't want to admit it, but she was curious. Humans were not known for their technology. Xiferans prided themselves on perfection, precision, and advanced machines. And yet here was a human boy showing results with what seemed like nothing. "Why do you spend so much effort on these things?" Zira asked, her voice softer than before. Leo smiled faintly. "Humans have learned to make the most of what we have. We don't always have advanced machines, but we can solve problems in ways others might not think of. Sometimes small changes can make a big difference." Zira narrowed her eyes. "Big difference? You speak as if your species can truly compete with us." "I don't know about compete," Leo replied honestly. "But we can adapt. That is what makes humans strong. We find solutions where others fail." For a moment, Zira said nothing. She had watched many species, and none had surprised her like this. Most were predictable. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, and unpredictability could be powerful. Before she could speak again, a commotion erupted in the marketplace. A large shipment of glowing fruits had tipped over, scattering across the street. Robots tried to collect the fruits, but their programming caused them to collide and jam. The crowd began to panic, worried about damage and loss. Zira's first instinct was to command the robots to fix the problem. But the chaos had grown too fast, and even their precise movements were failing. Leo stepped forward calmly. He assessed the situation quickly. "The machines are too rigid," he said to himself. "They can't adapt." Without hesitation, he started gathering the fruits manually, using small nets and clever containers he fashioned from broken crates. He organized the flow, guiding the robots where they could help instead of hinder. In minutes, the fruits were collected, the chaos ended, and the market returned to normal. The Xiferans were stunned. They had never seen a human handle such a situation with both hands and mind, without fear or hesitation. Zira, her color shifting in thought, stepped closer. "Remarkable," she admitted. "You solved it differently, yet perfectly." Leo shrugged. "Sometimes being different is the only way to succeed." The crowd began to murmur again, this time with admiration. Humans were simple, yes, but clever. Leo's calm, inventive approach was winning them over. Zira's pride, however, made her keep her voice sharp. "Do not think this proves anything about your species. One success does not equal strength." Leo only smiled faintly. He had learned early not to argue with pride. Instead, he focused on showing results. After the incident, Zira followed him to a quiet corner. "Tell me," she said, curious despite herself, What else can your species do? You have shown cleverness, but what about real usefulness? Leo thought for a moment. Then he opened a small container he had carried with him from Earth. Inside were seeds, small devices, and samples of simple machines. Humans produce many things, he said. Food, energy, tools, things that are small, efficient, and adaptable. I can show you how humans use these on Earth. Zyra's eyes flickered with surprise. Food? Your species can create sustenance? Leo nodded. Yes. We have learned to grow food anywhere, in small spaces or harsh environments. We find ways to survive and thrive using little. She frowned. She had traveled to many worlds, seen many species, and yet here was a human who could grow and manage resources better than many planets she knew. Show me, she said cautiously. Leo smiled and began explaining how humans used soil, water, sunlight, and basic tools to create sustainable food systems. He showed her a miniature hydroponic setup using his earth seeds. The plants grew quickly, and the system recycled water efficiently. Zyra leaned closer, her colors shifting with curiosity. This is clever, she admitted. It is different from our methods. Yes, Leo said quietly. Different, but it works. Humans think creatively because we must. We do not always have the best machines, but we have minds that can solve problems in many ways. For the first time, Zyra felt a twinge of respect. She had mocked him, believed him weak, but now she saw that humans had something Zyphora often lacked: adaptability. The boy continued to demonstrate his skills: small generators, water purifiers, simple tools. Each one worked efficiently, often outperforming Zyphoran devices in flexibility, if not in raw power. Zyra found herself learning, almost unconsciously. She had mocked him, yet the boy had opened her eyes to a new way of thinking. Humans were not simply primitive. They were clever, adaptable, and persistent. By the end of the day, the marketplace buzzed with new whispers. The human boy is skilled, a trader said. He makes things we cannot. Even Zyra, with her pride intact, could not argue with the results. She had thought she was merely observing a curiosity, but instead, she had witnessed a small example of humanity's ingenuity. Leo, meanwhile, remained humble. He did not boast or claim superiority. He simply demonstrated what humans could do, quietly and efficiently, letting the results speak for themselves. As the sun set over Zyphora, painting the market in shades of gold and purple, Zyra walked beside him, thinking. Perhaps, she said quietly, more to herself than him, there is more to humans than I realized. Leo glanced at her, eyes sparkling. There is always more to learn. That is what humans do best. For the first time, Zyra considered a new perspective. She had mocked him, laughed at him, and expected failure. Instead, she had learned that Earth produced something Zyphora often overlooked: ingenuity, creativity, and the courage to try. And in the heart of the marketplace, a human boy had quietly begun changing minds, one demonstration at a time. The morning sun of Zyphora reflected off the crystal towers and the floating market carts, casting a rainbow of colors over the bustling streets. The air hummed with energy as machines and merchants moved in perfect harmony. Yet, amidst this alien perfection, one boy's presence continued to stir curiosity and tension. Leo walked calmly through the market, carrying a small bag of his Earth devices. Today, he planned to show something more advanced: human ingenuity applied to everyday life. He was careful not to make things flashy. Zyphorans were used to perfection and might dismiss anything too simple as primitive. Yet, Leo knew simplicity often held the greatest power. Zyra followed him at a distance, her skin flickering in shades of green and gold, colors of intrigue and caution. Overnight, she could not stop thinking about the boy's cleverness. His solutions yesterday had saved the market from chaos, yet he had done so with tools no Zephoran could have imagined. Pride and curiosity warred inside her. As Leo approached a section of the market where water flowed in sparkling channels and levitating carts delivered goods, a small problem caught his attention. A mechanical lift used to carry fruits had stalled, leaving dozens of glowing fruits teetering dangerously. A crowd gathered, muttering in worry. "Another opportunity," Leo said softly, kneeling to inspect the mechanism. He noticed that the lift's programming could not adjust for uneven weight. The Zyphorans had designed perfect machines, but perfection left no room for flexibility. Leo's hands moved quickly. He inserted a small stabilizer made from earth materials, creating a simple counterbalance. With a gentle push, the lift resumed motion, balancing the fruits evenly. The crowd gasped and then erupted in applause. Zira stepped closer, her colors shifting to a deep, thoughtful purple. She could not deny the human boy's skill. "Your methods, they are different, but effective." Leo smiled. "Different does not mean weak. Sometimes simple solutions work where complexity fails." Zira's eyes narrowed. She had always believed strength came from advanced technology and precise calculations. Yet here was a human showing her that adaptability, creativity, and observation could achieve results she had never considered. "Show me more," she said, her voice low and almost reluctant. "If your species is truly clever, prove it again." Leo nodded. He reached into his bag and pulled out small devices for water purification and energy storage. He demonstrated how humans could take limited resources and turn them into useful tools. A tiny purifier filtered water instantly, while a small generator produced energy for a row of lights. Some Zyphorans shook their heads in disbelief. "These are simple devices," one said, "yet they work better than our own machines in some cases." Zyra's pride kept her from agreeing, but a flicker of respect appeared in her gaze. Humans were not just surviving, they were creating systems that were resilient, adaptable, and efficient. Then, an unexpected event happened. A gust of wind swept through the market, knocking over a cart and threatening to damage delicate devices on display. The Zephoran crowd panicked, and the robots scrambled ineffectively. Leo acted quickly. Using his small earth tools, he secured the falling cart, preventing damage. Then he organized the robots to help guide other items safely. In minutes, the crisis was averted. The market resumed its rhythm, but the crowd's murmurs were now filled with awe. Zira watched silently. For the first time, she admitted to herself that humans were capable of something more than she had believed. Their strength was subtle, not in brute force or flashy technology, but in creativity, quick thinking, and clever problem-solving. "You handle situations differently," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Zyphorans rely too much on precision. You rely on observation and ingenuity." Leo nodded. Observation, creativity, and adaptability. Humans must learn to solve problems with limited resources. That teaches us to think in ways others do not. Zira's pride flared, but she could not deny the truth. She had mocked him yesterday. She had believed humans to be weak. Yet here was a boy proving her assumptions wrong. She shifted her skin to a shade of muted gold, a color she rarely showed. Thoughtful, respectful, but cautious. Leo continued to demonstrate small human inventions throughout the day. He showed earth-based agriculture methods, including compact hydroponic systems that could grow food anywhere. He demonstrated how humans could recycle water, store energy, and create simple machines that solved problems efficiently. Each demonstration brought more murmurs from the crowd. Some Zyphorans shook their heads in disbelief. Others, quietly observing, began to nod. The human boy was clever, but more than clever. He was teaching lessons about flexibility and adaptation that Zyphora had never valued fully. Zira, watching closely, realized something important. Humans were underestimated because they appeared weak. Their strength was not in flashy displays or overwhelming power, but in creativity, resilience, and adaptability. It was a kind of strength Zyphora lacked, focused as they were on perfection and control. "Perhaps I underestimated you," she said, a rare hint of humility in her voice. "Your people, they are not as weak as I thought." Leo smiled faintly. "I do not think of humans as weak. We adapt. We learn. We solve problems. That is our strength." Zira studied him carefully. She could see the calm confidence in his eyes. He did not need to boast. His results spoke for themselves. And slowly she began to feel something she had never admitted before: curiosity mixed with respect. By afternoon, the marketplace had begun to change in subtle ways. Traders began observing Leo's techniques, quietly learning. Some Zyphorans even approached him, asking questions about how these simple methods worked. Humans, Zira realized, could teach lessons not only to other species, but to Zyphora itself. Then a challenge arose. A damaged food transport system had stalled, threatening the delivery of important supplies. Zyphoran technicians rushed to repair it, but the system was too complex to adjust quickly. The crowd watched nervously. Leo stepped forward, unhesitating. Using small earth tools and clever problem-solving, he devised a temporary solution. He guided the flow of supplies, balanced the load, and prevented a complete failure. The system resumed work smoothly, and the crowd erupted in applause. Zira's colors shifted to a soft violet, a shade she rarely displayed, respect mixed with surprise. She had thought humans primitive, but now she realized that one human boy could solve problems faster than even Zyphora's best technicians in certain situations. You really are impressive," she admitted quietly. "I see now that your people have something Zyphora lacks: adaptability, cleverness in ways our machines cannot replicate." Leo looked at her calmly. "Thank you. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes, but we learn quickly, and we find ways to succeed where others might fail." Zira nodded slowly. She had started the day mocking him, expecting failure. Instead, she had witnessed a human boy saving the market, showing ingenuity, and earning admiration from even the most skeptical Zyphorans. By the end of the day, Zira made a private decision. She would continue to watch this boy not as a curiosity, not as a primitive, but as a teacher of unexpected strength. Perhaps Earth produced something Zyphora needed to understand: creativity, adaptability, and the quiet power of human ingenuity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm, golden light across the marketplace, Leo packed up his devices. He had shown Zyphora a glimpse of what humans could do, but he knew this was only the beginning. More challenges awaited, and he was ready. Zira followed him silently, her thoughts deep. For the first time, she admitted that humans were not to be dismissed. She had mocked, laughed, and doubted, but the boy had taught her something important. True strength was not always obvious. Sometimes it was subtle, clever, and entirely unexpected. And in the heart of Zyphora's bustling marketplace, a human boy had quietly begun changing the way an entire world thought about Earth. The morning sun of Zyphora cast sparkling reflections over the marketplace, highlighting the floating carts and shining crystal towers. The air was alive with motion, robots gliding smoothly, traders calling out, and citizens moving gracefully through the streets. Yet in the midst of all this efficiency, one human boy, Leo, quietly prepared his next demonstration. Zira followed him at a distance, her skin flickering shades of gold and purple, a mixture of curiosity and caution. Overnight, She had been thinking about Leo. Yesterday, he had shown her that humans had something Xiphora often lacked: flexibility, creativity, and the ability to think beyond strict rules. Today, she planned to test him in a different way, through collaboration. "Human boy," she said, approaching him as he arranged small devices on a table, "if your species is truly capable of cleverness, then help me with a challenge. The market's energy grid is unstable. It fails when the load changes too quickly. Can your people help?" Leo looked at the sprawling network of glowing conduits, carefully observing how energy flowed through the market. He could see why the system failed. The Xiphoran machines were too rigid, built for perfection but unable to adjust quickly. Humans, he thought, often solved such problems with simple, adaptable solutions. "I can help," Leo said calmly, "but we must combine your technology with simple adjustments from Earth. Alone, either approach might fail. Together, we can make it stronger." Zira raised an eyebrow, a faint flicker of surprise crossing her features. Collaboration was not common for her. She was used to control and precision. Yet she sensed that Leo was not just clever, he was strategic. They worked side by side, moving through the marketplace. Leo suggested small adjustments to the conduits: flexible regulators that could adapt to sudden changes, minor rerouting of energy paths, and lightweight storage devices to balance the load. Zira provided Xiphoran precision machinery to amplify his simple devices. The first attempt failed. A surge of energy sparked through the conduits, and some lights flickered. Xiphoran traders gasped, worried about damage. Zira's pride flared for a moment, but Leo remained calm. "Try again," he said, his voice steady. "We need to adjust timing and placement, observe, adapt, and retry. That is how humans solve problems." Zira studied him, her shifting colors showing a mix of skepticism and intrigue. She realized she had underestimated humans. They did not panic. They analyzed, adapted, and persevered. The second attempt worked partially. Some sections of the market stabilized, while others still fluctuated. Leo adjusted a few regulators and rerouted minor conduits. Zira added precision control from Xiphoran technology. By the third attempt, the entire energy grid was steady. Lights glowed smoothly. Floating carts moved without delay, and the marketplace hummed with perfect rhythm. Traders and citizens murmured in awe. They had witnessed an unexpected success: human ingenuity combined with Xiphoran technology. Zira stepped back, her skin glowing a soft violet, the color of thought and admiration. "Your methods, they are different, yet effective," she admitted quietly. "I see now that your species can contribute in ways Xiphora does not always understand." Leo smiled faintly. "Humans often make the most of what we have. We combine observation, creativity, and persistence. That is what allows us to solve problems." Zira studied him carefully. His calm confidence and practical thinking impressed her more than any flashy display could. "Perhaps we can achieve more if we work together," she said, her tone cautious but sincere. Over the next several hours, Leo and Zira collaborated on multiple improvements in the marketplace. Leo introduced Earth-inspired techniques: small water recycling systems for food stalls, adaptable energy regulators for moving carts, and compact storage units that saved space and resources. Zira contributed Xiphoran precision, exact machinery, and advanced conduits that amplified the boys' simple devices. Traders and citizens watched, fascinated. Some skeptically muttered, "A human and a noble working together? Could it really succeed?" Others, quietly observing, began to nod in approval. The marketplace was transforming. Simple Earth-based ideas combined with advanced Xiphoran tech were making life smoother, more efficient, and more adaptable. At one point, Leo introduced a miniature hydroponic system for growing food in tight spaces. It recycled water and provided sunlight using a small, low-energy system. Zira studied it with fascination. "Your people grow food in places with very little space and energy?" she asked. "Yes," Leo replied. "Humans adapt. We make the most of limited resources. We solve problems by using simple tools in clever ways." Zira nodded slowly. She had traveled across the galaxy and seen countless civilizations, yet none had impressed her in this way. Humans were not perfect. They were small and fragile compared to many species, yet their minds were powerful, adaptable, inventive, and capable of finding solutions where others failed. By afternoon, their work drew attention from the Zephyrin Council, the governing body that oversaw technological and societal progress. Council members arrived to see the collaboration in action. They watched Leo adjust conduits, guide robots, and set up compact food and energy systems. Zira explained how the human boy's methods complemented Zephoran machinery. The council murmured in surprise. "This is unconventional," one said, "yet effective. The combination of simple adaptability and advanced precision is remarkable." Leo worked quietly, focusing on results rather than recognition. He demonstrated how humans could take limited resources and solve multiple problems at once. Energy, water, and food systems all stabilized, requiring minimal maintenance. Zira observed, her thoughts deep. She had mocked him when they first met. She had expected failure and weakness. But now, she saw something extraordinary. Humans were underestimated because their strength was different, subtle, and not immediately obvious. And this human boy had shown it with calm skill and creativity. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of gold and pink, Zira turned to Leo. "I admit it," she said softly. "I have judged your people unfairly. You show strength in ways Zephora does not always value. Perhaps we can learn from each other." Leo smiled, a mixture of humility and quiet pride. "That is all I hope for. Humans do not seek to dominate. We seek to adapt, improve, and share knowledge. That is what Earth produces." Zira's expression softened. "Then let us continue this collaboration. Perhaps together we can improve not only the market, but Zephora itself." And so they worked late into the evening, side by side, blending human ingenuity with Zephoran technology. Traders returned home, citizens left for their homes, and robots resumed their programmed duties. Yet in the quiet of the marketplace, Leo and Zira continued refining systems, adjusting energy flows, and testing new designs. By nightfall, the marketplace had transformed. Energy grids were stable, water systems recycled efficiently, and small food stations provided sustenance for anyone in need. Even the council acknowledged the results as unprecedented. Humans, Zira realized, were capable of more than anyone had believed. "Your people are clever," she said finally, her skin glowing a soft, proud gold. "I mocked you when we first met. I thought humans were weak. But you have taught me something important. Strength is not always in power or machines. Sometimes it is in creativity, perseverance, and the ability to adapt." Leo nodded. "That is true. Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we can solve problems in ways others cannot. That is what Earth produces." Zira studied him thoughtfully. She had begun the day skeptical, planning to test his limits. Yet by night she had learned humility, curiosity, and respect. A human boy had quietly shown her that his species had value beyond what appearances suggested. As they packed up their devices and walked toward the market exit, Leo looked up at the stars shining above Zephora. "There is always more to learn," he said softly. "Not just for humans, but for every species willing to see what others can offer." Zira nodded, a rare smile forming on her face. She had come to the marketplace to mock, to assert superiority. Instead, she had learned, observed, and collaborated. And in doing so, she had discovered something extraordinary: the quiet, adaptable strength of humans and the surprising power of collaboration. The market was quiet now, lights glowing softly, machines humming efficiently, and the citizens of Zephora slowly returning home. Yet a subtle change had begun. The perception of humans, once dismissed, was shifting. One boy's ingenuity, patience, and creativity had opened minds and set the stage for a new kind of understanding. Zira and Leo paused at the edge of the marketplace, looking back at the systems they had improved together. "Tomorrow," Zira said, her voice thoughtful, "we will see what more Earth can teach Zephora." Leo smiled. There is always more to share. And so, as night fell over Zephora, a partnership had begun, one of observation, learning, and respect. A partnership that could change not only the marketplace, but the way an entire planet thought about Earth and its people. The morning sun rose over Zephora, bathing the marketplace in a warm, golden glow. Traders set up their floating carts, robots glided through the streets, and citizens moved gracefully along crystal pathways. Yet today, the market felt different. There was a quiet excitement in the air, a sense that something unusual and important was happening. At the center of the market, Leo unpacked his Earth devices. Small solar collectors, water filters, and compact hydroponic systems were carefully laid out on tables. He worked with calm efficiency, adjusting each device to function in the alien environment. Behind him, Zira watched with a mix of pride and curiosity. Over the past days, she had witnessed Leo's ingenuity, his ability to solve problems with simple materials, and his quiet confidence. She had come expecting to mock, to see weakness, but instead she had learned something unexpected. Humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of changing the way Zephorans thought. "Today," Zira said, her voice steady but bright, "we will show Zephora what your species can produce. Not as a human, and not as a primitive being, but as a teacher of ideas and methods." Leo smiled faintly. "I hope they are willing to see it." The crowd gathered quickly, drawn by the unusual sight of a human preparing to demonstrate his devices. Zephorans murmured among themselves. Many were skeptical. Humans were small, fragile, and different. Some were curious. Others were openly doubtful. Zira stepped forward, her shifting skin glowing in shades of soft gold. "People of Zephora," she announced, "today we will witness the ingenuity of a human boy from Earth. Observe, learn, and perhaps reconsider what your world knows about other species." The crowd fell silent. All eyes were on Leo. He began simply. Using small solar collectors, he powered rows of lights, illuminating the marketplace without drawing energy from Zephora's main grid. The citizens gasped. Energy efficiency was something Zephora valued, but humans had accomplished it using compact, simple, and adaptable methods. Next, Leo set up a miniature hydroponic farm. Water flowed through narrow channels, feeding plants without waste. The plants grew rapidly under small lights he adjusted to mimic the sun. He explained carefully, "Humans grow food using small spaces efficiently. We recycle water, reduce waste, and make the most of resources. Even in harsh environments, we can survive and thrive with creativity and careful planning." The crowd watched in awe. Zira's eyes glowed softly. This was beyond mere cleverness. It was a demonstration of human resilience, observation, and practical intelligence. Then, Leo showed a simple water purification system. Using a few materials and a compact design, he could clean large amounts of water quickly. "This is what Earth produces," he explained. "Solutions that are simple, adaptable, and useful for everyone." The Xiferans whispered among themselves. Many began to realize that the boy's inventions, while small and unassuming, solved problems that their advanced machines struggled with. His devices were not flashy, not overwhelming, but effective and reliable. Zira stepped closer to Leo, her skin flickering a thoughtful purple. She had started this journey mocking him, convinced humans were weak. Yet now, she had learned something important. Strength is not always obvious. Adaptability, ingenuity, and perseverance could be more powerful than advanced technology alone. To demonstrate collaboration, Zira brought out Xiferan machinery. Together, she and Leo combined Earth simplicity with Xiferan precision. Small regulators, energy conduits, and adaptive controls worked perfectly with Leo's simple devices. The marketplace's systems became more stable, efficient, and flexible than ever before. Traders clapped quietly at first, then cheered. Citizens nodded in amazement. Even skeptical council members whispered among themselves, astonished by the combination of human ingenuity and Zephoran technology. Zira's voice rang out above the crowd. You see now, people of Zephora. A species once thought primitive has demonstrated methods that solve problems efficiently, creatively, and reliably. We have much to learn from Earth. The murmurs grew louder. Respect replaced doubt. Humans were no longer curiosities to be laughed at. Leo's calm intelligence had earned admiration and trust. Then Leo pulled out a final device, a compact energy storage unit combined with a water filtration system. It could power small machines, clean water, and even help grow food simultaneously. Humans think in ways that adapt to challenges, he explained. We use simple materials, careful observation, and practical designs to solve multiple problems at once. The crowd fell silent again, watching the small but powerful device. Some Xiferans shook their heads in disbelief. Others smiled, realizing that humans, though small and physically weaker than many species, had minds capable of solving complex problems with elegance and efficiency. Zira stepped forward, glowing a proud golden color. She addressed the crowd once more. I admit it. I mocked this boy. I doubted humans, but now I see clearly. They are clever, resourceful, and capable of teaching us lessons we never expected. The council members nodded, their expressions serious. A few approached Leo, asking him questions about his devices and how they could adapt them for wider use in Zephora. Traders and citizens crowded around, eager to learn and replicate the Earth-inspired methods. Leo remained humble, answering each question patiently. He explained how humans observed, adapted, and solved problems without relying on overwhelming power. He emphasized creativity, careful planning, and using what was available. Every explanation highlighted the value of simplicity and flexibility, qualities Xiferans had often ignored in their pursuit of perfection. By the end of the day, the marketplace had transformed. Energy systems were stable, water flowed efficiently, and compact food systems provided nourishment for anyone in need. Traders had adopted some Earth-inspired methods, and citizens began discussing how simple ideas could improve daily life. Zira walked beside Leo, her expression thoughtful. You have taught me humility, she admitted softly. I mocked you, thinking humans were weak, but you have shown me that true strength is not always obvious. Creativity, resilience, and adaptability, these are powerful in ways Zephora has overlooked. Leo smiled. That is what humans do. We do not always have the strongest machines or the largest armies, but we learn, we adapt, and we find solutions. That is what Earth produces. Zira nodded. Then let us share this knowledge, not just in the marketplace, but across Zephora. Perhaps other worlds, too, can benefit from your people's ingenuity. The boy and the noble walked to the center of the marketplace, raising their hands in a gesture of collaboration. Citizens and traders watched, some cheering, some simply observing, but all recognizing a profound truth. A small human had changed the way they saw strength, intelligence, and possibility. Leo looked at Zera, his eyes bright. This is only the beginning. There is much more humans can teach if others are willing to learn. Zera smiled, a soft glow of pride illuminating her features. I have learned, she said, and I will continue to learn. As the stars began to shine over Xiphora that night, the marketplace glowed with lights powered efficiently by Earth-inspired devices. Water flowed through clean channels, food grew in compact systems, and citizens moved confidently among smoothly running machines. The day had begun with mockery, skepticism, and doubt, but it ended with respect, admiration, and understanding. A human boy had quietly demonstrated that strength was not always obvious, and that intelligence, creativity, and adaptability could change minds, societies, and even worlds. Zera and Leo paused at the edge of the marketplace, looking at the systems they had improved together. Perhaps your species will change more than this market, she said quietly. Perhaps Earth has more to offer the galaxy than anyone imagined. Leo nodded, eyes shining with quiet pride. Earth produces solutions, ideas, and determination. Humans may be small, but our minds can achieve great things when we are willing to try. The marketplace of Xiphora was no longer just a place of trade. It was a symbol of collaboration, curiosity, and respect. And at its heart stood a human boy whose ingenuity had earned admiration from the most skeptical of species. Zera's shifting skin glowed warmly as she turned to Leo. You have shown me that mocking others only hides the truth. The strength of a species cannot always be judged by appearance, size, or technology. Sometimes it lies in creativity, perseverance, and cleverness. Leo smiled. That is the lesson Earth produces, and it is a lesson worth sharing. As night fell, the human boy and the Xiphoran noble stood side by side, looking at the stars. Across the galaxy, worlds waited to be observed, challenges to be met, and lessons to be shared. And for the first time, Xiphora understood something new. Humans were not weak. Humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of surprising even the most advanced civilizations. The story of mockery had become a story of respect, collaboration, and new beginnings. And in the quiet hum of the marketplace, a partnership had begun that could change Xiphora, and perhaps the galaxy, forever.